Hello and welcome to this ICAEW webinar, a guide to reviewing your app stack in association with auto entry. My name is Rose Harrington. I'm a Senior Practice Manager here at the ICAEW, and I'll be facilitating the session today. We very much encourage you to get involved with the webinar today by submitting your questions at any time using the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. We've kept time at the end to take your questions, so do please keep them coming in. Closed captioning is also enabled for the webinar. To turn on this feature, just click the CC icon on your screen or select captions from your menu. Please note these are automatically generated, so sometimes errors do occur. A link to the slides and some other useful resources will appear in your chat shortly. Also, please note we'll be sharing a copy of the slides and a recording of today's webinar with you in a follow-up email. I'm now delighted to hand over to our speaker today, Sean Smith, who comes with the delightful title of Accountant and Bookkeeper Evangelist from Auto Entry and Sage. Over to you, Sean. Hi.
Hi, cheers. Thanks for that introduction. Yeah, it is a jazzy job title. I didn't pick it actually, but I've let them keep it with me. So there you go. But yeah, thanks for the introduction, Roz. And hopefully everyone's in the right place. So yeah, today we're going to be covering, a guide to reviewing your app stack. Let me just introduce myself then. So my name's Sean Smith, accountant and bookkeeping evangelist here at Auto Entry. So a brief intro to myself. I know you're not here to see me, you're more here to see the content. But I was technically an accountant in trade, so that was what I studied at university. I went into practice for a short period of time, but found that it wasn't massively enjoyable. For me, I'm a bit geeky and I like technology, so I quickly jumped over to the technology side just under a decade ago. And so I've been working for different software companies. So you've probably heard of a few of them. I've worked for Free Agent, Zero, and now I'm working for Auto Entry and Sage. And in those kind of roles, I've worn a few different hats. I was in the support team for a while, technical support. Then I was in like training and onboarding of staff, and then I kind of moved into like a consultative role about 5 or 6 years ago. And so that's been the majority of my work has been traveling around the country, working with different accounting firms, and helping them with digital transformations, basically. And then I became particularly interested in service design and change management in the last couple of years as a consultant. And I bring all that experience over to Sage and Auto Entry. So hopefully I can be of use to you guys today and of use to them in the long term. Just before we get started, though, I wanted to put a little poll up for you guys to kind of interact with. So the question should pop up on your screen just now, but I'll read it out for those of us that are watching the recording afterwards. So what don't you like about your apps that you use right now? You've got a few options here to choose from. So too expensive, don't like how you're built is one option. Features, so are there too many or not enough? The third option is a lack of sort of AI or integration. Fourth option, just too difficult or annoying to use. And then the last option is other reason. So we'll leave that up for a couple of seconds. I'll tell you the answers as well because I should be able to see a sort of percentage split once we close the poll as well. So there we go. So the winner is too difficult to use and too difficult or annoying to use, 33%. And then second place was too expensive, don't like how we're built, 23%. And third place was other reason, 21%. So interesting. It'll be interesting to see what the other reason was. But there's your kind of split there. So the big sort of standout seems to be too difficult or annoying to use. Which kind of makes sense to me. I wonder if that's a customer success kind of side of things, like onboarding and making sure you're trained and showed how to use the products when you take them on. Certainly that's been my experience as a consultant over the years. Okay, so let's get into it, shall we? In terms of what we're covering today, so table of contents up there. So we'll look at how you might review the technology you're using, a quick sort of audit. So looking at your processes, I suppose, and your systems and seeing if there's any gaps that can be filled with apps. Where to kind of find and introduce new technology. Of course, the buzzword at the moment is AI, so we'll be talking a little bit about AI and how that works in different apps, and from our own point of view with Sage Copilot, got a really snazzy video to show you on that as well. And then we'll kind of round it out with creating a practice improvement plan. So if all of the points 1 to 4 interest you and you want to sort of take some action, hopefully point 5 will give you point you in the right direction to kind of get started. So let's get into it then. So how to review your technology. So let's have a little bit of a refresher here on what an app stack is, right? So it's a bit of a techie term, I suppose, an app stack. So what does that kind of mean? And so basically everyone will be using software, whether it's desktop or cloud-based. I can't imagine that there's a lot of firms nowadays that aren't using at least one piece of software. Of course, with making tax digital, it's become more and more relevant. It's almost, in some cases, impossible to avoid. And so when we talk about an app stack, what we're talking about is the multitude of softwares that you're using within your practice at any one time. So we refer to that as an app stack. So it's kind of like the suite, I guess, of apps or technology that you're using. And predominantly we focus on sort of like the bookkeeping and accounting services when we talk about that. And actually, from my point of view, I think an app stack is crucial, right? It can save you lots and lots of time, and there's many apps to kind of choose from, and choosing the right one can be tough, I guess. But that's what we're here to kind of talk about today, right? So when you're considering the app stack, try and think of it not from the sense of, oh, I'll just go and get the shiniest things or the most popular things out there. Try and consider, what do you need to solve for? And then make sure you're getting that right. Now, most of these apps will be cloud connected, which is brilliant because this allows the sort of seamless sharing of data between one silo and another. And I guess a really important thing to kind of highlight there is, if it's not cloud connected, you've really got to maybe think to yourself about the usefulness of that app in the modern world. Just because from an ease of use point of view, you will be using multiple apps. MTD is coming. Even just like the general public are more and more tech savvy these days. And so having that as a kind of like a crutch of not being able to connect or have cloud connectivity is an important thing to kind of think about. You want to try and avoid that whole downloading, uploading kind of piece, which arguably, if the app that you're using is saving you time doing a certain function, having to then export and then import to get any kind of use out of that could totally nullify any of those kind of time savings that you get. Of course, another thing to kind of think about with apps is the fact that they are available on your laptop, your desktop, and your phone. So it kind of breaks away from the whole, you can only work in one environment in the office or your home office or whatever it is. It kind of opens up the world. One of the kind of anecdotes that I'd heard on my travels was a client, sorry, an accountant who was on the road. So they were visiting their clients, and they were able to just log in on their iPad at a service station while they were getting fuel and submit a VAT return, which is cool, I think. Now, I'm not suggesting that that's where we should be submitting VAT returns from, but it's just, I guess, exciting or interesting to know that that kind of functionality is available to us now, whereas, of course, it previously wasn't. And the last thing to kind of talk about with the app stack piece is, yes, you want them all to be integrated, but what that doesn't mean that you have to go with like one vendor or one kind of like suite, for example. And that's the beauty of integration and APIs and building your app stack, is that you can take kind of like a view of what is the best solution for this particular problem that I want to solve. And then you can do that across the board and solve multiple kind of issues within your practice. And more often than not, with the cloud connectivity, you're able to then connect those different apps together. Um, so that's my kind of quick kind of understanding of what an app stack is, and just like a refresher for anyone um, kind of talking or here to talk about app stacks. But let's take a little look now at the benefits of having a good quality app stack. So the first one to kind of call out is just connecting with your clients. It means you can move, you can move data sort of instantly and seamlessly between like yourself and your client. Um, and an example of this would be like COVID a couple of years ago, right? There was a lot of COVID kind of funding applications that needed to be created, and they needed to be created quickly. So through the use of like cloud technology, a lot of the firms that I was working with that had already kind of adopted these technologies. I'm not going to say it was an easy task, but it was certainly made a lot easier by the readiness of data and the ability to kind of just flex and create customized reports on the fly because the data was already there and kind of flowing through the systems. Whereas I guess previously it would have been a case of having to email PDFs or send it by post or whatever it was because we weren't able to meet, of course, face to face at that time. Another thing to call it is just like introducing efficiencies like into your core processes. Um, so the idea here is not just to introduce technology for technology's sake, as we've kind of already mentioned, but it's looking to kind of build app stacks or connectivity around uh, drudgery tasks or like tasks that are heavy on like manpower and time that can be automated. Um, and I think that's really useful. That there's different elements to why that's useful. One of them can be recruitment. Certainly by removing those tasks and freeing up individuals, whether that's junior or senior individuals to do more sort of valuable work or more kind of interesting work, I suppose, in front of clients, maybe like doing the business advisory piece, taking the numbers and bringing them to life, um, can really help with that kind of recruitment issue that we certainly have in the industry at the moment. I know from my own experience, that was what kind of led me to leave the accounting firm I worked for. It was just the expectation versus reality, I think, was the main kind of issue for me. Having graduated, it was all financial advice. It was like tax law, business sort of management, things like that. It was all quite interesting and exciting, kind of like directing businesses in different directions. And then, of course, my first couple of months in the accounting firm, I spent a lot of time typing up bank statements and things like that, and it was just very different from what I expected. Of course, if they'd been a more technologically advanced, I suppose, for maybe I wouldn't have had that kind of like shock experience and could have stayed in the industry. But that's just from my own experience. And then it frees, well, I've already touched on this, so frees up time for you to work in better ways or to use your time in different ways. So I'm not one for saying um, as soon as you free up time, you can make more money, um, because that's not everyone's kind of like goal in life. So I think it's important to understand that using apps and the quality of an app stack can be that it saves you time, but that time's not always money because it depends how you want to use that time, right? So if some people may want to, okay, well, I'll focus more on new business and getting more clients in and making more money. Some people may want to focus on, well, actually, now I've got the time, I can service my existing client base better and delve into their businesses in more detail and help them more. Or it may be more of like a work-life balance kind of situation, right? Where actually, if you're able to do the same amount of work in half the time, then you can spend more time doing the things that you love, whether that's, spending time with the family, taking the dog for more walks or the right amount of walks. For me personally, it would be tennis. So I'm a big fan of tennis myself. So if I had more of a work-life balance, then I'd be certainly spending more time on the tennis court. And I guess the last kind of collateral benefit that I want to kind of mention is this kind of like presenting yourself as a digital first kind of business. And I think that's important when we're thinking about the generations that are moving into the world of work now. I heard an interesting talk at Accountex last week, was it, or the week before? And it was talking about the different generations that are in the workplace now. And of course, you've got like Gen Z, you've got millennials, and so I was quite shocked, I guess, to learn that Gen Zs are sort of 26 years old now, and millennials are kind of 42 years old, and these people or these generations have grown up with technology. An interesting quote was that Gen Z, I've written this down, was that the Gen Z generation on average had their first smartphone before their 12th birthday. So you're talking about a generation there that's had, smartphone technology and information at their fingertips from sort of 12 years old onwards. So their expectation, of course, going into the business world or the world of work would be that it would mirror that. And so that's one of the sort of indirect benefits, certainly, of being digital first and kind of tech savvy. So kind of touched on this a little bit, but it's the idea that apps is all about that time saving piece, right? So it's time saving, yes. And I guess I kind of touched on this in the previous slide, but that doesn't always mean revenue. It can mean increased revenue, but it can also mean improved work-life balance or focusing on your personal development or focusing on developing in clients more. I suppose the sort of equation we've got here is work activities, getting rid of tasks, and then increased time saving. But I think the big one I want to kind of call out from my notes here is that all of this kind of leads to a competitive, what we call like a competitive advantage. And of course, as the business environment's never easy, right? There's always competition. And so it's important to kind of always be looking for how can I improve here? How can I, like marginal gains theory, if you have read the books by the coach that coached the Sky cycling team, it was all about marginal gains. And I think that's what the app kind of space is for our industry. It's how do you find those kind of marginal gains to keep your advantage? And technology is a great way of doing that. And of course, technology is not slowing down. It's speeding up and it's becoming more and more prevalent in our lives. So I think grabbing hold of that advantage is a really smart thing to do. So how much are your apps costing you? This is more of a kind of just opening an awareness piece to sort of say, yes, there's lots of apps out there, but let's not be tempted to just go and get everything, and try and think of the costs involved and what that kind of looks like for your business. So in your discovery phase, so when you're looking at picking your apps, you want to kind of look at the pricing structure they have. So we're calling out here sort of subscription or per use or per user kind of pricing structures. You probably want to have a look at, has the pricing changed recently? Or has the way that you paid changed recently? So just doing your kind of due diligence on that kind of pricing structure. I mean, technically, I'd recommend doing that regularly anyway, but certainly when you initially engage with an app, it's good to kind of understand that. Thinking about your existing apps, what are you paying for at the moment? Are there features in there that you don't use and never will? Then maybe it's worth having a look around or speaking to the app and sort of saying, actually, we're paying for these features and we don't use them or we don't know much about them. So doing a bit of discovery on that and seeing if maybe there's more value that you could be extracting from the app that you're using. Of course, the whole idea of taking out an app, right, point four here, is that it saves you time. Um, if it's not, so it's worthwhile doing an audit every so often, just kind of check if you're still getting those time savings. Because if you're not, then uh, questions need to be asked, right, about whether it's the right app or whether you're implementing it properly or whether another solution might be helpful for you. Um, and from my point of view, certainly when I was helping businesses to implement apps, the colleague kind of feedback loop was something that I found very important to kind of implement. And that's just because if you're looking at it from a kind of top down kind of approach, if a process or an application has been implemented, it may not be the decision maker or the buyer that's using it daily. It'll be their colleagues, right? So they're the members of their team. And so getting that kind of direct feedback from like, yes, this is working, or no, it's not, or actually if we did it this way, it would work kind of idea is really important. So getting that information from the horse's mouth as well is important in understanding the costs and whether the app is working for you. Another useful thing to do is a sort of cost benefit analysis. Um, so then try not to. I think this slide's more of a warning to kind of think about. Don't just look at the costs only with an app, before deciding to shift or change or take it out. Kind of look at what's included within that cost, right? So this will vary from app to app, from provider to provider. So it's what other kind of benefits do they bring? So in your price, are you also getting support and kind of training on that product from the vendor? Are the features within that product scalable? Are they going to be able to grow with you? Um, do they have a partner program? So quite often with these app companies, including ourselves at Sage and Auto Entry, and certainly when I was at Zero, it was the same. If you use more of a product or you have more users on the platform, then you move up the partner program levels and you unlock features sometimes, discounts certainly, or access to other products within their suite, free of charge or at a discounted rate as well. Think about the integrations. So, I mean, I think this graphic's quite useful here. If one of the apps in this graphic, for example, um, wasn't giving us exactly what we wanted or was costing a little bit more than we expected or something like that, and we take it out and the alternative comes in and it doesn't integrate with the rest of the system, then we've got an issue. And so actually thinking about that before we make a decision is really important as well. A big one is like what do clients want to use? If it's a client-facing app, of course, we've got apps that we will use internally as accountants. Um, but of course, the businesses that we service, um, have a whole array of services and industries that they work within, and they might have apps in their space as well. So just understanding what are the kind of key benefits from the apps that they're using and whether they integrate or push through to your systems is really important to kind of be aware of as well. And just operationally, so I think I've kind of covered that. So the interconnectability, which is what the graphic kind of shows really well. So moving on to point two then. So we've talked about sort of app stacks, the benefits of them, and thinking about the cost benefit analysis. So if we wanted to do like a quick audit, just to kind of look at where are the gaps within your firm that possibly a digital solution or app could solve for, then let's take a look at that. So I've jotted down a couple here. This is just kind of 6 areas. This is not an exclusive list. There's obviously a multitude of areas within a business that can be optimized and improved. But just looking at these, I want to pull out a couple of examples in the next few slides. But we're looking at kind of like onboarding and proposals, document collection, the actual core like accounting, practice management. There's lots of areas and these are all like kind of big obvious ones where we know there's apps in these spaces. Reporting apps are big. and sort of chasing of client payments as well. So if we fire into some examples. So an example might be managing your like accounts receivable. So getting fees from clients, you all know it can be a bit of a pain, right? And if you don't take care of that, then your cash flow obviously can suffer. But you don't want to be spending all of your time chasing late payments. So how can we help here? Well, is there an app that can maybe automate? And there certainly is. There's a few different ways to kind of help with this. The first one I'm going to call out is kind of setting up direct debits. So a really cool service, Go Cardless. They provide direct debit mandates. So I guess typically direct debits were always for big businesses, quite difficult to set up through the bank. What Go Cardless have done is made it kind of accessible to everyone. So it doesn't go through the bank, it goes through their system. Um, and so what you can do is you can use it for one-off payments, but I think its kind of standout feature is its direct debit mandates. So what it allows you to do is set up your traditional kind of direct debit, um, which we all know. I'm not going to go in and describe that, but the direct debit mandate is really useful because what you kind of do is you kind of set like a threshold. So let's say it's £100. And both parties will sign and agree to that mandate. And so whenever you issue an invoice, up to that value, so below or up to that value, it's automatically approved from the customer side and the payments received immediately. So it really kind of cuts down that kind of debtor days and keeps your cash flow going well. So that's one way of sort of making it easy for clients to pay, which obviously helps with debt collection. If it's easy to pay, maybe they'll just pay on time rather than having to chase them. I'm going to jump down to the third one actually. So if they're not paying, then you can actually automate the chasing of that. Now, within products like Zero and Sage, you can actually build reminders in anyway, but they're quite sort of basic and limited. If you want some sort of all singing, all dancing kind of chasing methodology, then Chaser's a great option. What that allows you to do is kind of set the payment due date, and you can set the kind of thresholds of when you want to start chasing and the severity of the kind of language, I suppose, you want to use when you're chasing. So it's all through like templated emails, and you can set the kind of timings and things like that. So that's a really useful app for kind of setting and then not worrying too much about the chasing of debt. It can be done automatically, and it will reach a point where it then escalates to you again. But a lot of the initial chasing is done. And the reason, as we've put in Cresco as well here, so they're actually um, quite disruptive in the industry at the moment. So they're similar to Go Cardless. Without the direct debits, they're more sort of one-off payments, and they allow you to put in like a pay now button on your invoices. Stripe's another one. But with these services, so Go Cardless, Stripe, there is a fee. It's not like obstructive to using them. It's usually 1%. And sometimes they'll have like a fixed fee. So whether that's 20 pence per transaction or something like that, or 1%, whichever is the highest, is usually the pricing models that you see. But Cresco is an interesting one because they are fee free. So they're a real disruptor in the market at the moment. I think they make their money in other ways through the back end. I'm not 100% sure on how it kind of works, but I think it's all about the interconnectability of different banks and things like that. There's fees through that, but the actual customers, the end users, get to use it fee free, which I think is really cool. So that's one example. Moving on to example two. So this is quite a common one. So like capturing your mileage claims. So we don't need to go into like too much detail here, but I mean, I traveled a lot with work and I still travel a bit with work now. And so our expense system that we use has got this really cool feature called Map It, where basically I just put in the postcode of my home, which it already knows, and I put the postcode of where I'm going, and it just optimizes the route through Google Maps. So it's pretty much always the route I end up taking. and then I can press if it's a return journey or not, and it calculates um, the miles for me, and also it puts it through at the approved kind of HMRC rate. So within our system, we have to select like the engine size of our car and what have you. Um, and it's really cool because it pushes through to our accounting system. So there's like an app for everything, right? So whether your clients are using this or whether you're using it, if you're going out on site, so it's an easy win, easy one to kind of pick up. And of course, if it connects with your accounting system, then even better. And then the last example is shamelessly auto entry, so data capture, so capturing data and documents from your clients. Now, of course, there's other providers out there, Data Molino, Dext. I'm sure there's others. I can't remember off the top of my head, but auto entry is R1, so the one that I work for and is a part of the Sage suite now. And so some kind of highlight features of data capture then are that it extracts data from receipts and invoices, it can read bank statements, and all of this connects to like your major accounting apps. So it allows you to kind of scan paperwork, whether that's in the office if you're using like an office scanner. So we certainly had clients with the Tesco bag of receipts, the shoebox of receipts kind of clients. So you're able to scan them through sort of at the kind of books in part of your process at reception. And then those systems are able to kind of categorize. They kind of learn as they go. I'll go into that in a bit more detail later. I've got a slide that kind of shows how auto entry works, but it kind of reads the information, pushes it through into your accounting system, and really kind of optimizes that process rather than having to kind of type it in manually yourself. So that's some examples of use cases for apps. Now, this is again not an exclusive list, right? There's an app almost for everything. In fact, certainly when I remember a particular client that I was working with, they rang me up and they were like, "I know there's a lot of apps, but just off the top of your head, do you know if there's an app for a horse dentist, so like equestrian dentistry?" And would you believe it? I typed it into our, like the marketplace, and there was an app for horse dentistry, which is wild to me, but there you go. That's how niche they can be. Um, okay, so if that's wet your whistle on wanting to kind of look into um, you know, looking at your business where an app might fit in and improve, then you probably want to work out where do you find this kind of technology, right? So where can you find apps and services? Um, so it's not like super difficult. App stores and marketplaces are kind of the best place to look, because that's where everybody goes. So that's where all the vendors will put their adverts and put their apps, because they know that's where people are going to buy them from. And of course, by putting them on that marketplace or in that app store, to get on that list, they usually have to pass certain requirements in terms of security and things like that. And so it's a safe place to go and look because you know that you're getting a minimum standard of kind of service level from that vendor. Now, your kind of major accounting software players in the market have a marketplace. So Xero have one, Sage have one, QuickBooks will of course have one as well. So that's a good place to look because they'll be kind of industry specific, so it'll narrow the kind of field of scope. Other places to look are the obvious kind of Apple Store, Google Play Store. Microsoft have their own store as well. So again, on there, you'll have a wider kind of scope. It won't necessarily be um, industry specific, although you can filter within these places to get more narrow in your kind of search. A good place to look is just Google. Certainly, Google it is, in fact, you can even get a GIF called Google it, which I used to use. When people, I know there's no such thing as a stupid question, but often as a joke, if someone asked me a question that felt quite obvious, I would say, well, just Google it. But it's true, like if you type in what you want to find in Google more often than not, you're going to find a pretty good answer there. And then, of course, good advice, right? So just listen to your team, listen to your clients, your community, wherever that is. Um, People are always stumbling across apps. There'll be viral trends or whatever it is. They'll be talking about it, and you'll find out things that way. And another thing to maybe check is places like Trustpilot and stuff like that. Maybe more once you've found what you're looking for, look at the reviews, rather than kind of starting from a review first kind of place. So that's like where to find them. So if you're looking to switch apps, here's some considerations to kind of think of. Um, so we'll just start at the top. So creating a window of time to do so. So that's an important one, right? So if you're looking to take out an app or move from one app to another, that's going to take time. So just kind of how long that's going to take, do some scoping, pardon me, understand when's a good window in time for you to do that and how long it's going to take you. Kind of have a think about or speak to your existing vendor or future vendor about the import export kind of capabilities. Because of course, moving from one to another, it would be ideally you'd want to be able to lift and shift the database that you have. You may have been with a particular app for a period of time. You may have an obligation to keep that information, or you may just want it for your kind of reporting kind of aspects. So understanding the ability of what can be exported and in what format, and then where you're going to, what can be imported and in what format is really important to kind of think around. Ask around. So I kind of touched on this already, ask clients, ask professionals, that, your peers that you're working with, how they moved, when they moved, or what apps that they're using. Um, every vendor, pretty much every vendor that you interact with will be happy to give you a one-to-one demo of their product. So, book that in. Don't be shy. Ask the difficult questions, right? Because you want to be choosing the right products for you. More often than not, you'll get a free trial as well. So why not try it out? That's probably the best way to learn. Certainly, I find I quite like to just sort of click around and click and play with apps to kind of learn them myself a little bit, get a feel for them. Obviously, if you use it on your own information, you kind of know those numbers intimately, right? So once you put it through their app, if anything, it would stand out to you sooner, if something was wrong. Consider the timing. That's an important one. Certainly for client data, payroll is a big one, right? So a payroll migration would typically happen end of the year. Before you start the new year, that's probably the best place to kind of do it. So kind of consider the time of year or the timing of when you're going to do your switch. And then, yeah, I guess an important one is established, whether the vendor's established or a startup. This is probably quite a pessimistic view. Like startups are a little bit more risky, right? So they may not be in for the long haul, but it's a consideration to kind of take on. Whereas I guess your more established vendor is less likely to go bankrupt, for example, or to just terminate your service for some kind of reason. Of course, there's pros and cons to both, right? So typically your startups are more agile, so they would be able to build a feature or fix a problem quicker um, than maybe a more established vendor. So it swings and roundabouts. There's pros and cons to the startup and the established kind of vendor space. And then transitioning. So thinking about your transitioning. So whether you want to do it fast or slow, you'll have existing clients will be on existing apps. So an easy starting point is any new clients will just go onto your new app stack, right? And then you can focus on migrating your existing clients over to the new ways of working on the new product. Step by step. You could do it, in bite-sized chunks or VAT quarters or whatever kind of way you want to split it up. So that's kind of some considerations when switching apps. Looking at cost control questions when switching apps. Um, so, well, I mean, we touched on this a little bit earlier. So thinking about the app package that you've got and the pricing of that, is that going to scale with your business and how you're wanting to use that app, right? So if you're looking to kind of maintain like numbers and things like that, and it's based on a client number basis or team number basis, and you don't see a massive fluctuation in numbers in your future, then that's maybe fine or perfect for you. If you're looking to kind of grow massively and it's on a per user basis. Maybe there's another vendor that's unlimited or they've got different kind of packages, right? So kind of looking at your growth trajectory and how the pricing of that particular app matches to you how you expect your next 5 years to go, for example. A good one to look at is, I suppose, like the trend of price increases, right? So how often do they typically occur? What's the leap when they do them? Just as a kind of awareness piece, it's always good to be aware of that so you can kind of be aware of the expectation in the future of what that pricing structure is going to look like. On that kind of pricing structure piece, like just the transparency of the billing, right? So knowing what you billed from when and the window and where the cutoffs are and all that kind of stuff. Just being really aware of what you're getting billed for because you want to make sure that you're getting the most value for what you're using. Um, and I guess just looking at whether the pricing or the scope of the packages is kind of changed historically, or does it change a lot, or whatever it is. Basically, you just want to have like a really good understanding of the pricing landscape for any app that you're going into business with so that you are informed and aware of what's kind of likely to be ahead of you in that journey. Um, App costs, so client pricing here. So this is more thinking about, so we've thought about the pricing for yourselves and for your own firms. But then there's the question of, well, how do we price it for our clients, right? There's a few different approaches here when it comes to passing that cost on to the client. So you'll see from the slides, you can absorb that cost as a kind of operational cost. I know firms I've worked with have done that. Um, and they're happy to do so because they feel that the benefit from their client using that app and the time savings outweighs the cost of that app to them internally. So that's one option. Another option is kind of itemizing it out, right? So kind of talking about that kind of transparency piece from our point of view as customers of the vendors, you want to try and pass on that kind of transparency to your clients as well, right? So you can split out and sort of say, this is the cost for our services, and these are the tools that we use and the costs attributed to those as well. Another option, of course, is that you do your research and you're aware of the kind of best breed apps, and you can sort of confidently recommend to your clients, these apps are going to be great for your business type, and we really recommend that you go and get those. So then they go and get them, they pay the vendors directly and give you access to that software. So that's another way of doing it. And of course, option 4 is just like a mixture of all of the above, right? So it may be that you absorb some of the cost, you itemize out a discounted version of the cost, or if it's an app that's kind of niche and there'd be no reason for you to have a business relationship with that particular vendor, then maybe that niche client goes and gets the app from the vendor themselves. So all of the above kind of mixed together. Okay, so just kind of like tips for finding apps and services. Information is key. Information is king. Ask around, I think, is the the best bit of advice, right? So different communities, forums, Trustpilot, comparison websites, peers, friends, customer, like clients, anyone, just kind of speak to as many people as you can about the problem that you're having and how if they have the same problem and how they maybe solved it, what apps they used, that kind of idea. Pardon me. So just asking around as much as you can. Attending kind of like things like Accountex, like a couple of weeks ago, are a great opportunity. So attending kind of industry events. That's another way where you can ask around, right? So if you attend those events, you've got all the vendors in one room for 2 days, or if it's another event, 1 day or whatever it is. And you're able to go around and get demos, pamphlets, information, sign up to newsletters, whatever it is, and just gather as much kind of information as you can and want for the problems you want to solve. I kind of touched on this already, so like a community kind of based thing. So ask on Facebook groups. Um, I guess this is an important point. So it's not just what they're using, it's how they use it is an important one. So it's always worthwhile understanding what they've used to solve a problem. But trying to, well, there's the old adage, right? If you use a new bit of kit and you use it in the old way, you probably won't get the benefits out of it. A lot of times these apps are designed to be used in a specific way, and so it may be that you want to take out the app to solve a problem. You'll then have to kind of adjust or flex your way of working to optimize that app and get the most out of it. Otherwise, what's the point in using it, right? So it's what they use, but also how they use it that's important. So maybe informing your questioning around the how as well as the what. And I'm just trialing it, right? So I think that's the best way to kind of really know if something's going to work is trial it. Um, that's also a confidence builder, which pulls into my next slide, which is about how do you get clients to take on apps. If you've used it yourself and you're using it on your own information, you kind of ironed out the kinks, you know where to click, you know where in settings to change something. You're a bit more confident with that app because you've used it a little bit yourself. Then means that the conversations further down the line with clients, for example, become a lot easier. Just what we'll delve into just now. So how to introduce apps to your clients. So this typically I've found is more difficult than it sounds. I think as humans, our nature is to not really enjoy or like change. I think people can get used to change, whether we truly enjoy it, I don't know. It's up for debate. Um, but it's just being careful around that, right? So things to focus on are the kind of like the benefits or the result or the pain that it's solving, right? So kind of saying, if we take the example of like data entry, sort of say, how long has it taken you? How much of a headache is that for you? Do you really hate having to do it? You kind of don't look forward to it, etc., etc. Well, this could remove all that from you. So focusing on the kind of result and how it helps will help them. Focusing as well on how it helps them and their specific situation. So in a lot of these times, there's the pitfall of sort of saying, well, we want you to use this app because it's useful for us. But that's not really a great way to convince someone because we're all selfish, right? What's in it for me? How's it going to benefit me? And so the conversation should really be, we want you to use this because it will allow us to do more for you, really. So if it streamlines and saves you time, you're then able to do the work for them accurately and in a timely manner. It then opens up the opportunity to spend more time looking into something else for that client and delving into doing additional work for that client that you possibly couldn't have done before. So it's framing it to sort of say, look, it's help me to help you, which I think I've just stolen from Jerry Maguire. I'm pretty sure he shouts in the mirror, help me help you. So it's that kind of idea, right? So if you're using or looking to get your clients onboarded onto apps and excited about them, it's all about help me to help you. Of course, we got MTD. So if the carrot's not working, there's the big stick as well, right? MTD's coming in, so everything does need to be digital. And a lot of these apps will help with being MTD compliant. So that's another route to go. And just on the confidence piece, I suppose, is remember you're the expert, right? Certainly, if you've done your research, you've picked your app, you've played with it and used it yourself, you know that it is going to benefit the client, then have the confidence to tell them that you do know it's going to benefit them and that they should engage with that app and listen to you as their kind of trusted advisor. Okay, so AI, it's the buzzword at the moment. I guess it's maybe not a buzzword so much as it's definitely changing the industry. Even just in our personal lives, it's changing everything. And so we kind of need to touch on it a bit. It's an important aspect to think about when thinking about apps. Like, do they have AI on the roadmap? Are they going to be using it? Is it going to be sensible the way that they're using it, etc., etc.? We've all got different opinions on what AI is going to bring to the industry. But I wanted to show you just a short video here, so I think it's a couple of minutes long. For those of you that haven't seen it, of Sage's Copilot AI assistant. It's actually a really good. It's an old favorite song of mine, so I actually loved it when this advert came out. But I'll play it for you guys and let you have a little sense of what Sage Copilot can do for you. Oh, let's not start that again. There we go. So that is Sage's Copilot. I know that's a brief kind of video of the capabilities within there. If anyone's got any questions about Copilot, more than happy to answer those if we've got time at the end, or take it offline, because I know there'll be a lot of interest. There is a lot of interest in that product and what it kind of means for Sage and the wider suite. So more than happy to answer any questions you've got on that. But kind of, I guess, kind of, where does the value of AI come from? So the value in AI, of course, if you saw from the video there, it's able to do a lot of tasks at the touch of a button. But the only way that AI is going to be valuable is if we've got a good sort of fast flow of information 24/7, right? So that kind of real-time data piece becomes very important if we're wanting to maximize or utilize apps in general, but certainly the AI or smart capabilities within them. And so that's the important bit, right? So it's about empowering fast data in an environment that allows your integrated app stack to kind of unlock the value of these things. And I guess that's the value of an integrated app stack, right? Is you've already got that flow of information happening for you. And I kind of, as promised, how does auto entry help with that? So this our kind of proposal is all about creating fast and accurate data flows. Um, so I'll just talk you through the slide that we've got here. Um, so it focuses on like receipts and invoices, bills, bank statements, that kind of idea, things that you would typically manually enter. And what it does is it captures those and integrates with your accounting software, right? And so left to right, you would get your documents received. So whether that's in a shop or via email, however, we receive them in lots of different ways now, right? So you can use the mobile app to capture that receipt while you're in the car, or when you get, if it's a pet receipt, when you get back in the car, just capture it right there and then. You can scan things in, like I said before, through like a scanner within the office. Or if you receive it by email, you can forward that email to auto entry. It will read the attachment or the body of the email and then extract that information. There's also the ability to kind of connect with vendors. So like Screwfix is an example on Vodafone. If you get like a month-end bill from a particular vendor, you can connect to that vendor. That month-end bill from them will come straight into auto entry, be categorized and kind of read, and then you have the ability to publish it into your accounting software. Um, Now there's smarts built into there, there's AI built into there, right? So it can sort of take an educated guess as it learns over time. So as you enter these transactions, you'll choose, descriptions, which contact to link it to, VAT rates, for example, et cetera, which accounting code you want it to go to. It will learn over time what these are and sort of suggest, oh, last time you did it this way. Do you want me to code it up the same way? Yes, please, kind of idea. So the whole idea around it is it speeds up that flow of data. You can also set rules as well, right? So if you've got a transaction that comes through at a high frequency and you know that it's always going to be to one category, you can set up a rule to tell the system to just always mark into that category for you. Right, we're running low on time, so we're at the last point here. So creating a practice improvement plan. So this is kind of just summing it all up, right? So if um, today's kind of whet your appetite on looking at different apps, looking at your practice, finding a problem or something that's maybe not as efficient as you would like, not necessarily a problem that you could improve, and you want to kind of look into the app space for improving it. If you go through that process and you pick one, you want to implement it. I think it's great to kind of just think of these kind of things. Now, this isn't an exhaustive list again, but it's a key part of rolling something out is to assign roles. Of course, if it's just yourself, you're a one-man band, you may have to wear multiple hats, right? So it'll be yourself. So making sure that you've got the time to implement something. If there's more than one of you, then I would definitely recommend assigning a kind of owner to the plan or the project and getting them to have the power and the control to make that happen and to get the team around them to on board with it. As it comes to affecting clients, it's really important, I think, to kind of do a segmentation, understand your client base, maybe pick the low-hanging fruit to move across first, the people that are tech savvy and adoptive, and maybe not the ones that are resistant to change. Let's not start with them. If we do the easier ones, we could get some success stories and then they could actually influence the people that are less likely or less open to change. So just kind of segmenting that client base down, chunking it into acceptable kind of bite-sized bits so that you can work through the project. And on that, then just setting kind of like your milestones, right? So when do you want a certain number moved by? When do you want them trained by? How far and wide do you want the adoption to be? Is it initially just one team and then other teams or one individual? So on and so forth, right? Kind of just plan it all out. And then make sure you've got some KPIs in there as well so that you're aiming for something, whether or not you hit it is kind of irrelevant. I think it's important that you have something to aim for and you kind of go for it to get there. Lastly, so just a shameless plug at the end here. So auto entry is free to try. If you do want to have a go, then please do. You can just go to our website and try the for free button. No credit card required, and you'll get 25 free credits. So that allows you to essentially scan in 25 different documents. So go and try it, test it, take a small year-end job, put it through it, see if it works for you. If it does, great. If it doesn't, then you've at least tried it and you know that it doesn't work for you, right?
Thank you so
I
much,
think we're
Sean.
there. Yeah.
We are. I'm so sorry we haven't had time to get to your questions today. We do have a webinar on the 20th of June with Sage to talk about AI APIs and how they can help your practice, because a lot of the questions coming in are about that Copilot that everybody found very interesting. Paul's
Okay.
been holding on for a long time, so I'm just going to ask his question
Yeah.
about the accuracy of auto entries scanner, the character recognition. Do you have an answer for him about how accurate that
Yeah, I
is?
do. Yeah. So it's not a like so probably not the best answer because I don't know the technicals behind it, but basically we receive a report every month on the accuracy and the number of failed kind of reads, and it usually comes out about 99%.
Perfect.
So between 99 and 100 is usually where it flexes on the accuracy of what it picks up and what it reads. That's in Latin-based languages, though. So if it's
Good
characters
caveat.
outside of that, yeah, yeah, like Chinese characters or whatever it is, it doesn't read those.
Some discrepancy, no problem. Thank you, Sean, for your time. That
Yeah,
was
no worries.
really interesting, and we're looking forward to carrying on that conversation on our next webinar. Thank you to all of you for your time, for listening to us today. Please do fill in your feedback so that's going to pop onto your screen for 2 minutes now. It helps us know if Sage is hitting the mark and auto entry with their content and what we can do to further support you in your practice. Other than that, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers,
Thanks,
everybody. Thank
Sean.
you. No worries at all.